Netlify, and we're here for another live stream. Today, I am joined by Marcos from Prerender.io. Thanks for being with us, Marcos.
Thanks, Sean. It's a pleasure being here.
Absolutely. So we're going to talk all things pre-rendering, and I have lots of questions. What I had posted yesterday was I'm hoping I can leave this conversation knowing more than I ever thought I would about pre-rendering, and so I'm excited to get into it. But I think maybe you can start just by introducing yourself and your background, and maybe a little bit about just high level pre-render IO, and then we can dig into some of the details.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Sean. I'm Marcos. I'm head of partnerships here at Prerender IO. We've recently launched a dedicated extension for the Netlify X system for their users to be able to enable pre-rendering. But in general terms, pre-rendering, what it is and why it's becoming more relevant now. Pre-render has been around for ages, let's say 10, 15 years since JavaScript has been around. Pre-rendering has been a solution for rendering and allowing bots to do their job, crawling, rendering, and indexing. So it's been around for a while, and now it's become a little bit more relevant with the whole change in the search landscape and how LLMs, AI is changing how people search and how is that trickling down to the infrastructure level and how we actually solve, how companies solve and make sure that bots can access and see their content. Yeah.
Yes, because I think we're what I've seen is that when folks who maybe don't have as technical of a background are spinning up, let's just say, new projects, and aren't explicit about the technology that they're going to use, and don't need to be because the agent
Hmm.
can infer a lot of those things. That often what I've seen is that these agents will reach for usually like Vite and React, which are they're programmed to be their defaults, and in those cases, often those pages aren't pre-rendered. And so I think maybe a good place to kind of set the stage for folks who may be listening in who don't have as much of a technical background. Can you kind of talk to us about sort of that difference between the different types of rendering, and um, how and maybe why your agent might choose something that other agents and chatbots don't have access to?
Hmm. Yeah. So definitely. So this is a topic that comes up a lot in our conversations with clients, um, and I think it's key to emphasize the point that if your company relies on content that is online and that you need that content to be in front of users or customers, uh, you have to acknowledge that there's another audience that you need to tailor that content for, and that's called the machines because the list keeps on increasing: search bots, social bot, marketplaces, LLMs, and it will continue because search is expanding and people are doing search in different ways and using different outlets. Um, so if you acknowledge that you need to tailor your content so that machines can access it and fully see it, um, that will set you up for success. And what does that mean? Basically, the 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 machine has to go into your site, crawl it, render it, and index it. If it ends up in the index, you're one step ahead to all the other content out there because it can actually be used to answer answer prompts on LLMs, or even make it on search engine results, the traditional search engine results. So in this case, as you mentioned, small companies usually don't think about the architecture and the infrastructure in which they'll start building their sites. Um, but we also see this as a case for enterprise level clients that are struggling a bit with these topics because they developed their whole infrastructure years ago and they keep on updating but doing a migration to a fully SSR server side rendering solution might be an overhaul for the whole engineering team that then requires them not only to do the migration but then keep it maintained. And let's face it, that's usually not uh, core to their business. So they, in some cases, they prefer to go with a solution such as ours that is a plug and play solution. Basically, we sit in the middle of the incoming request and we redirect them to our servers where we've done the work of rendering and caching so that we can serve this machine audience faster, and you don't have to change all your infrastructure to be able to tailor for that audience.
Yes. So back to that point about enterprises and server side rendering, I think is really interesting because I know as you and I were talking over the last couple of weeks,
Hmm.
my question was, well, why don't these enterprises just use some server side rendering framework? But my guess here is that a lot of this is, yeah, maybe they totally re-architected 5 6 7 years ago to JavaScript, to the JavaScript ecosystem. And are you seeing that it was the tools that were available at that time didn't offer that sort of pattern, and so they they rebuilt, but in an era where server side rendering wasn't as popular or mature,
Hmm.
or is there something else at play here where you're seeing that most of the enterprises are putting into practice, or maybe like struggling with, and need pre-rendering?
Yeah. So it's a lot to unpack here. I think it's definitely related to the time of when this happened and how JavaScript came to change the game of the online game to make it more and more interactive, and companies needed to focus on that. And at the moment, the the big player Google was the main search point, and nowadays with the Google bots, they are actually able to render JavaScript, so they're the
Mm-hmm.
ones that struggle the least. There is a complication there related to crawling budget, because the more JavaScript your site has, the more time or resources the bot needs to dedicate in order to actually render it. That generates a little bit of delay in many cases because, as imagine that Google has to index and re-index pages constantly. So in many cases, it just puts JavaScript heavy content on a queue. So it takes a little bit of delays. Um, but that was the question for some years, and now let's say 2 3 4 years now that the search is being a little bit revolutionized by the new search outlets. uh, these new bots behave completely differently,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what's putting a little bit more of pressure on enterprise level, but also small projects, to take into account this infrastructure piece of the puzzle more seriously than before. So now we're seeing a spike in these requests, and we one of the examples is knowledge bases for SaaS services. Usually, knowledge bases were dedicated for developers to be able to understand their how to implement a new tool within a company. In nowadays, knowledge bases are becoming sales channels, because basically knowledge bases are written in a way that is very much tailored for what a LLM bot needs.
Mm-hmm.
So they are pinging those, and they are not JavaScript heavy sites usually, but it's crucial that bots can access it fully. And basically, you're doing the job for the LLM bot, and that allows the bot to cite you. But these bots, as opposed to Google bots, they don't render JavaScript at all. So they just pass through it and infer what the site is about. It just gives a generic response without actually looking at your content or even putting the link and citing you specifically in the answers. So that's what's generating this new pressure of
Mm-hmm.
taking this infrastructure level more into account. Yeah.
And I think it's interesting because I know we're talking here specifically about pre-rendering in context, and so it can maybe come off as feeling like, oh, these were not good decisions, or there were limitations 5 7 years ago,
Mm.
etc. But i I actually think there's a reason that even a lot of these news sites are spinning up with this single page application architecture, and it's because it does still work. It is still a good pattern for a lot, even at scale. It can be really good for enabling teams to kind of
Mm.
like work in their own space. There are a lot of architectural advantages to it. So I think that's, even though we're talking about pre-rendering, it's like, okay, well, that's a side effect that you have to deal with, but it
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily mean that that architectural decision was bad, right?
No, definitely, definitely. And I think it goes back to the point of audiences. Now you need to tailor to the machine audience, but
Hmm.
it doesn't mean that what the tools that you're currently using that we've been developing for the last 10, 15, 20 years that brought us down to a marketing team being able to launch a landing page in a fraction of the time without requiring developers to be involved and actually experiment and provide better experiences for their customers and users, which is definitely great, and it generates a lot of revenue and satisfaction on the users and customers. That is great. The only point is now you need to add a layer to that in order to be compliant with how the whole infrastructure works. At the end of the
Yeah.
day, it's like the metaphor with the car. You can put premium fuel into it, but if your air pump and your fuel pump is not working correctly, your car will work. You'll get there, but you'll move slower than what you could get out of it. And this is just looking at your site and the content that you post out there in this way. It enables to keep on moving forward and using the new tools to generate better experiences, and just make sure that whatever you're doing that is very high quality is making it in front of more eyes at the end of the day.
Yes, love that. I love that.
Yeah.
So for maybe more of the technical folks that are listening in, and maybe understand the concept and the value of
Mhm.
why we need this, but maybe haven't put it into practice yet. Can you share a little bit about kind of the pre-rendering process, maybe a little bit of that
Yeah.
architecture, and how it works?
So I think the value of solving this issue with a pre-rendering solution is the simplicity, the plug and play way to integrate. So we are basically a middleware that sits in the outer rim of your infrastructure where the incoming requests comes in. So basically at the CDN level, or if you're not using CDN, we can go even further into the source code. But essentially what we're looking at is where the requests are coming from. And uh, by looking at the user agent of each request, we're able to redirect the ones that we've identified as crawlers, bots for different reasons. And instead of sending them to your server so that they can experience the live version of your site, you and real users go to that site, all the user agents that are listed here are redirected to our servers, where we've previously sent our bot to your site and cached all your pages, and we already have a rendered version of that page so that we can serve the bot when we get a request. We can send the bot an HTML version of your already rendered site. Essentially, that's how it works. We provide various features to customize the logic, so taking into account things related to avoiding cloaking, making sure that we have the freshest version of all of your sites. That's all you're able to control that through the customizations within the platform, different rules for your different types of pages, etc., so that we have that all in line. But essentially, that's how it works.
You were just looking at what type of user it is, and if it's a human, you just say, yeah, keep going.
Go
Go.
ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yes,
Exactly.
this makes sense. Do you have you run into scenarios where you have So wait, I want to ask this. So are you always serving the exact content of the page to the bot, or are there configurable changes in there? And I'm asking this because we
Mhm.
built something custom for Netlify's documentation site, where if we sense that a bot is coming in to request the page,
Mhm.
rather than saying here's all the HTML code, we have the source file, which is a markdown file that's
Mhm.
already available, and we say here's the markdown file because we think you're going to be more effective with just the content. I'm wondering if that does that come up at all with y'all?
It's a question that comes up in conversations with client. Currently, the service, pre-render service, what it does, it provides exactly the snapshot of the current page,
Yeah. Okay.
of the real page. What we are leaning into in that regard is providing a lot more visibility to the clients via the platform, for them to better understand, okay, a bot specifically, we're leaning into AI bots for this, to better showcase to the end client, a bot is requesting this page, but exactly like imagining a heat map of what is it exactly looking for. And that's what we're leaning more into, that, and experimenting a lot into the bot behavior, how many times the request, what pages, what is looking for, and also looking at the side of, okay, how are you appearing on the other side, on the answers to the prompts, so that we can help our clients better understand um, how those two aspects of the little black box that is AI, how it's working. So we're not tailoring or changing the site at the moment. Yeah.
Okay. And I think when I think about this concept, I tend to take a simplistic view, and I say, okay, if I had this, let's say I have a single page application and it's mostly an e-commerce site, that I'm thinking, okay, well, I would configure it so that the product pages are discoverable, but something like a cart page doesn't matter because there's no reason for a bot to.
Mhm.
That is very customized and dynamic for the user. I'm wondering if there is a middle ground there a bit, where how complex that logic gets in terms of what if the homepage of that site has at least some component of it that is personalized, but do you still want to pre-render it, or are you pre-rendering part of it? How do folks usually work through that process?
Yeah, so we have that coming up a lot too. We provide specific rules that you can implement, so that depending on the URL, we don't cache it. We send the bot directly to your live site, so you have some wiggling room so that you don't have to pre-render the full site. We've
Okay.
also seen cases in which clients end up uh, doing it for their whole site, just because the delivery speed is much faster, even if the site is a little bit static. And since at the end of the day, and this is, I think, more important for bigger clients, it's a volume game. So at the end of the day, how many pages you have that are really not so dynamic, uh, yeah, they end up doing the math, and they just say, just do the whole thing. At the end of the day, we'll gain a couple of seconds in the delivery speed. It won't hurt. Yeah.
And are you so if you take a say a maybe a news or media site
Mm.
that's got, I don't know what they have, hundreds of thousands of pages, maybe some of them, or more, are you proactively pre-rendering, caching that content, or are you waiting for like that first request and then serving subsequent ones from the cache?
There's various ways to trigger a cache of a new cache of a page. So
Okay.
we work with the client's sitemap to set our service to proactively go and recache all the pages. They have to be included in the sitemap that they provide to us, and we provide them with a way to apply a cache freshness. So do you want news, media, e-commerce that they change a lot? It's from 1 hour to a day, usually with big companies. Smaller ones we can see from recaching every 2 to 4 days, and more static sites are the recaching happens every 5 to 7. But the client also has a way to trigger specific pages that they know they've changed. If they're more of a static client, they can go into the platform and just trigger a recache via the platform or sending an API request. Additionally, if a bot requests a page that is not included in the sitemap and it's not within our cache already, the way the service works is that we go and we render the page on the fly, serve it to the crawler, but keep it in the cache so that the next time we can serve it at the same speed as all the other pages that are already in the cache.
Okay, okay, that makes sense.
Mhm.
And so I wanted to spend a few minutes then talking about kind of the integration between Netlify and prerender.io. You know,
Mhm.
we so Netlify recently released a pre-rendering extension, which is a very simplified. I mean, it's still complex under the hood, but I think really built to serve simpler sites. And
Mhm.
as those sites grow and scale in complexity, um, really need to a lot depending on the architecture is what I should say
Definitely.
that may need to reach for pre-render IO. So can you tell us a little bit about that the pre-render IO extension and how it plugs into Netlify?
Yeah, definitely. So you can find the extension directly on the Netlify marketplace. What it does is pretty straightforward. You're able to add the extension to your workspace within Netlify, and then within each one of your projects, you can activate the extension depending on if your project requires pre-rendering or not. As we were saying, smaller static sites might not need that at the moment, but as you scale and have either more pages, more dynamic content, you might benefit from this, and it's worthwhile exploring the situation. But there you have to activate. You just get redirected to the pre-rendered platform where you register. It's pretty straightforward. There's a few steps there, but it's essentially telling us what is the domain and just getting your API token of your account and plugging it in on your Netlify project. And that's all set. Then you have on the pre-render platform all the customizations that we were mentioning: cache freshness, the ignore rules if you want to apply them or not. And essentially the what triggered this partnership between Netlify and Prerender IO is that, yes, you have the the basic extension that is available, also the Netlify generated one. We're here to provide reliability, scalability, and dedicated support to bigger
Mhm.
teams, maybe. It's also tailored for smaller projects. You can definitely apply Prerender IO, but I think in this collaboration with Netlify, we're aiming to provide that additional layer of support, both in the integration process and bigger sites. There is a lot of customizations that need to be done, and a lot of things that, by implementing a service like this, we start flagging a lot of things that we see on your site that you might benefit a lot just by fixing a simple thing that it gets flagged in the process of pre-rendering it. Yeah.
Yes, that's a great point, and I think that yeah, dedicated support and getting people stood up is yeah hugely valuable for sure.
Mhm.
Um, all right, so I think I'm hoping you all who are out there listening in that you're probably thinking, well, do I need pre-rendering or not? And so if you like at this point, you still have that question. There's a tool we'd spun up at Netlify which can analyze the site and make a suggestion based on that. But I thought one of the last things that we should cover here, Marcos, is how you generally talk with folks about that. You know, in some of your earlier conversations of how to determine if somebody does need pre-rendering and will get a lot of value out of your service.
Yeah, definitely. So the first high level point is if they know if they're using JavaScript a lot in their
Mhm.
site. But there's also another aspect that it would serve clients to acknowledge is that even if your site is not JavaScript heavy, uh, if you update your content very often, that might also generate a place for a pre-rendering solution to generate a lot of value for you. Uh, just because, going back to the Google search engine, the bot, it puts everything on a queue at the end of the day. And if you're launching a new line of
Mhm.
product, or you're changing all your content, you're a news or media entertainment company, you need that update to be reflected at the user level very, very fast. And when I'm typing, um, I don't know, scores of matches, or what's the latest price of a stock, or whatever, you need to see the latest information out there. So that also generates I would say, if I would be managing that, even if I'm not using a JavaScript heavy site, I would look into this. But after that, there's a lot of ways to use SEO tools to identify uh, red flags or orange flags that would tell you, hey, looking to a pre-rendering solution, like your pages being crawled but not indexed. Uh, I know there's a way via Screaming Frog and other tools to actually look at your site with JavaScript and without JavaScript, and comparing the code there. That would basically tell you, if without JavaScript, it puts you in a position that the bots might not be seeing the content that appeared with the JavaScript. So things those are tests that we do in the initial conversations to basically understand, hey, your site actually would benefit from a pre-rendering solution, or in some cases, you're all set. Keep on going and reach out to us when your site grows or you're implementing something new.
That's interesting. I didn't realize that SEO tools would do that. So is Screaming Frog generally the preferred one, or do you have others that you've used?
There's a lot, and usually what we try to do is adapt, get into a call with the marketing team of the
Mhm.
company, and just open up all the tools that they're using, and there are many, to deep dive. We have in our knowledge base different articles specific to each tool, just to give you a hint of, hey, if you're using X, this is where you might want to check out. What's the situation in your site regarding JavaScript, getting your pages indexed, yeah, things like
Great. Well, Marcos, thank you very much for the conversation. I think it was really insightful, and it helped me a lot. I hope it helped some of the folks out there as well.
that. Yeah, cool. Thank you very much, Sean, for having me. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, folks.